The fact that a lot of people don't believe, and what's sad, a lot of Christians don't believe that there's any connection between sex trafficking, more specifically, I'm going to say child sex trafficking, and the satanic world, is sad.
Of the few times that you ever hear about child sex trafficking in the mainstream media, you never hear about the occult connection. I've never heard it. But here talking with me were experts who work in this field. They see this stuff every day. They've seen it all, and they were telling me that it's real. Some of the stuff they were saying reminded me of some things my co-author, Stephen Bancars, wrote in our book, The Second Coming of the New Age. In that book, we talk about how New Age theology is basically the same as occultism, just with a few different words here and there. Steve knows that because not only has he done a lot of research on it, but he's also lived it. He's experienced it. He's been in that world and has come out of it. So I knew he would be someone I would have to talk to learn more about these occult connections.
My name is Stephen Bancars, and I used to be an author in the New Age movement. I had a very successful website of my own, and I was a guest author on the largest New Age website in the world. And when I came to Christ back in 2015, I started researching Satanism, and I actually purchased a copy of the Satanic Bible because I wanted to search through it to find parallels between the doctrine taught in theistic Satanism and even LaVeyan Satanism and New Age spirituality. And I was very surprised to see that a lot of the stuff I was practicing while in the New Age movement was sourced from Luciferians such as Helena Blavatsky or Aleister Crowley, and it was documented right in front of me in the Satanic Bible.
I am a Sunday school teacher turned filmmaker, exposing ritual abuse, exposing human trafficking, exposing the cults and Satanism and things like this. And I am involved in ministry to people that come out of ritual abuse, to people that come out of satanic cults. And I made my first film, started about 4 years ago. It's called Detestable, to expose ritual abuse and satanic cults.
You don't want your mind to go here. It goes beyond just abusing children, as horrific as that is. A single case of abuse on any human being is unacceptable. But this is repeated abuse with these children, but it goes deeper than that. We've got occults in the United States that are engaging in child sacrifice. Now, is that as prevalent as sex trafficking? No, the numbers are far less, of course, but the fact that it is organized and it happens is real.
Well, as many know, the Satanic Panic was this era throughout the 80s and 90s when interest in the occult, especially among teen circles, had become a nationwide phenomenon. There were newspaper headlines at the time heralding this new trend in murder, ritualistic human sacrifices in the name of Satan. In fact, one of the most famous cases at the time took place on March 5th, 1986, when Sean Sellers killed his mother and stepfather while they were asleep in their bedroom in their Oklahoma City house. At his trial, Sellers claimed he was a practicing Satanist who had read the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey hundreds of times, he said, at the time of the murders, and that demonic possession had caused him to murder his victims. His attorneys also argued that Sellers was addicted to the game Dungeons and Dragons, which fueled his interest in dark matters and murder. There have been numerous books written about the Satanic Panic, all of them in their own way presenting these various reasons as to the cause of what took place during that period, which were presented as telling the true stories of survivors of the most horrific, grisly, inhumane, satanic cult and occult practices in American history. Some might remember that John Todd was this famous fraudulent minister claiming that he was born into and appointed to be the high priest of a satanic cult. Jack Chick, who published all of the Chick tracts of the 60s, through the present day, he actually published several tracts addressing Todd's warnings to the world. Now, Chick was completely innocent, I think, only intending to warn the world of dangers that he believed were true as they were told to him by Todd. But his publications nevertheless played this enormous role in the church's war on the occult during that time. Todd was later arrested and charged with rape and child molestation. The tragic lies, of course, drove unnecessary fear into the hearts of concerned people and proceeded to fling this unnecessary egg on the face of the Christian church after it was rightly exposed as a hoax. The unfortunate side effect as a result of these famous hoaxes within religion has been, both before and after the falsehoods were uncovered as scams, there really were abuses of children by Satanists who follow the teachings of men like Aleister Crowley, who taught in his Telema text that the blood of children could energize special favor with unseen demonic intelligence.
A very prominent player in the popularization of occult practice in the West is someone named Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was a 20th century occultist who actually had the name the Beast 666. That was a nickname he gave himself. He was once dubbed the most wicked man in the world, and a lot of what is now practiced in 21st century occultism comes from Aleister Crowley's material. In the New Age movement, he is heralded as being someone who really birthed New Age spirituality in the West, along with Helena Blavatsky, but the New Age movement is a much more mild version of the type of occultism that Aleister Crowley himself practiced. But if you go to his primary sources, there's a very clear documented source of him saying that blood used for magic rituals is very effective. In particular, he says the blood of a young male, in particular an innocent male, is the best for magic purposes. And some people have tried to debunk this and say it's not exactly what he said or what he meant, but it's very clear in the text that he believes blood sacrifice is permitted and most optimal for magic ritual. And he himself has admitted to making blood sacrifice to demons who ultimately gave him his doctrine of thelema.
The reason for satanic rituals and the reason for child sexual abuse and human sacrifice is to gain demonic powers so they can empower themselves and so they can send those powers out to attack other people, whether it would be politicians, whether it would be their enemies, whether it would be Christians, Christian churches, pastors. As Christians, we believe there's power in the blood. We believe in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. His sacrifice and his shed blood gave us power to overcome the enemy. The dark side believes in the same thing, but they believe in animal sacrifice, human sacrifice, and sexual abuse of children. That's how they gain power. That's how they summon the demonic and they send it.
What was interesting for me to find out as someone who had been involved in New Age spirituality was a lot of the cultures that I used to venerate, a lot of the cultures that are praised and heralded in the New Age as being spiritually advanced, technologically advanced. Some of the cultures you'll see mentioned on Ancient Aliens, they were all practitioners of ritual child sacrifice. Cultures like the Incans, the Aztecs, the Mayans, even First Dynasty Egypt. These are cultures that are praised. You'll see people walking around with Mayan tattoos, and it's really trendy within New Age spirituality. But when you actually look at what they believed about their spiritual practice, they believed that sacrificing people and children unto these deities was how they would receive favor, how they would receive spiritual ability, and how they would ultimately appease these gods. And what people will quickly find when they start doing research into this is a lot of the same practices and ideologies adopted by these cultures, they're mirrored in the modern day elitists who are ultimately running our planet and kind of governing the show. And people will credit things like the Satanic Bible, which talks about how there is bioelectrical energy within the blood. In the Bible, it talks about how the life of the animal is in the blood. And the idea is that demons are ultimately fueled and energized by this blood once it's offered unto them. And when it's innocent, it's more pure. And that's why Aleister Crowley says that demons prefer blood that is offered from a young, innocent male. And so people will ultimately claim that there is this correlation happening in the world right now between what we see with these pedophile rings and this idea that the blood of young children in particular is most powerful if you're doing some kind of a demonic exchange or an exchange with one of the gods who the Bible would say are demons in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 20 to 22. What pagans offer unto idols, they offer unto demons. So the belief is that people within, let's say the Epstein case, for example, they are not just violating children, they're violating children ritually unto demons, and maybe even perhaps sacrificing them to dispose of them at the end of the ritual in exchange for demonic power and demonic favor and to appease the gods, just as has been documented all throughout the course of human history.
Satanic cults are still out there operating, and they're still doing rituals, and they're still summoning demons, and they're still sending demons. When we talk about Satanism, there's different denominations of Satanism, but when we're talking about the people that are doing rituals, killing babies, doing sexual abuse, we call them the undergrounders. We're not talking about kids that are wearing makeup, that are wearing dark clothes, that listen to heavy metal. We're talking about generational groups that pass on their dark religion from one generation to the next. They're abusing their children, and they're doing all the things that are being testified about. The ritual abuse, baby killing, blood drinking, cannibalism. We do know that the survivors that are coming to us for help are telling the same stories. People from all over the world that don't know each other telling the story. There were people in robes, they were chanting, they were doing specific rituals. There was sex with children involved, there was cannibalism involved, there was blood drinking involved, and on and on and on. We hear these sorts of things from people that don't know each other, that have no ability to network, mostly children. Same testimony.
Well, satanic ritual abuse, what is it? It's exactly what it says. It's satanic, it's a ritual, and it's abuse. But how is it done? Usually they will go after little babies, okay, young children. And a lot of times the woman will become impregnated for the purpose of having this child, or this child will be ritually abused. It's a continual abuse in a very specific manner in order to split the thought processes of the human being into multiple categories. You say, well, why would they want to do that? Well, they need it to further their agenda. They split the personalities, and one personality may be a victim, one personality may be the professional, one personality may be the mother or the father. The other personality is the one that is suicidal. So if you look at a lot of the shooters, which I've studied, have you ever asked yourself, why do they always kill themselves?
Police say an employee opened fire at the Old Miller Brewing headquarters, now the Molson Coors Company, killing 5 co-workers before turning the gun on himself.
The city of Santa Clarita, California, continues to grieve this morning following this week's deadly shooting at Saugus High School. The alleged shooter died Friday while being treated for a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head.
And 2 people shot dead while practicing yoga in Tallahassee. Police say that shooter took his own life.
This is video of the Jacksonville landing where a man killed 2 people before turning the gun on himself.
She killed herself after opening fire on 3 employees, one of them now in critical condition.
He fired into classrooms as teachers locked doors. Students took cover under desk. He killed himself when police arrived.
I mean, I could understand maybe 2 or 3 out of 10, but like 9 out of 10? Why? Because they're programmed. Because once they carry out their agenda, which they're programmed to do, then they're programmed to end it, which is what they do, so that there's no evidence, it doesn't get carried on. I've interviewed and I've seen people with as many as 32 personalities. There's millions of SRA victims out there. Half don't even know they're victims, but they're carrying forth an agenda that was given to them at birth or as a young child.
I think that the interest in children is for multiple reasons. One, children are an easy target. They can't fight back. I believe it's mostly about the innocence. They love destroying the innocence of a child. Satan hates humanity, and he wants to destroy the innocence of that child. Whether they're going to use them in a human sacrifice or they're going to recruit them for later, it's also to split the mind. when a child, especially under the age of 5, experiences just traumatic sexual abuse, the human psyche splits and there's a shatter there, and there's what we call DID or MPD, multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. When they have that raw personality, they can program that personality and they can recruit them to be a future cult member. And they can carry on their tradition or their dark religion into the next generation.
The ultimate agenda, I hate to be simplistic, but is to condemn the soul, is to put the soul into hell, keep it out of heaven. That's their ultimate agenda. But now let's look at the carnal, at the world. They're in the political system.
On page 294 of the report, Bobby, there's this, it kind of jumps out of the page at you. It's titled Hillary Clinton and Foundation, Crime Against Children. And it's referencing all the emails that were on this Wiener laptop. And there was an effort to, I guess, sequester certain emails away from the probe. You can see, Coleman's notes from October 4th contain the following entry. Anthony Weiner, unrelated, Anthony Weiner texting 15-year-old sexually explicit initial analysis of laptop, thousands of emails, etc. But they had a conversation about which emails would be allowed to be looked at in this case and which would be, set aside.
They're certainly in the religious system.
Pope Francis long knew of the cardinal's abuse and must resign, says Archbishop. On the final day of Pope Francis' mission to Ireland, as he issued wrenching apologies for clerical sex abuse scandals. By the way, it seems that this is so widespread around the world. Everybody thinks the church, I guess, dealt with this some years ago, and it's becoming clear that not only has the church not dealt with it, it has continued to spread. And there are now calls for the Pope's resignation because he knew about it. A former top Vatican diplomat claimed in a letter published on Sunday that Il Papa himself had joined top Vatican officials in covering up the abuses and called for his resignation. Could we all agree that rampant pedophilia in the Catholic Church is disturbing and a cause for real concern? Now, has the Pope convened the offending cardinals and told them to stop it? No. In fact, the story is that he's long known of all of this and hasn't done much about it.
They're in the financial system. The fourth one is the entertainment system, which is what does Hollywood have to do with it? The satanic ritual abusers have used Hollywood from the very beginning to move forth their agenda. The first thing they have to do is gaslight. Okay, they have to make you believe that what you see isn't really there and what you don't see is really there. Gaslight was a movie that was actually filmed in the 1940s. The term gaslight didn't exist until this movie came out. It was about a woman who was wealthy and this man wanted her money, so he would go up at nighttime and shake the lights. At that time, it was the turn of the century, so they had burning candles. She would see him and he'd come back down. She'd wake up in the morning. Did you see the light shaking? He'd go, no. And then he would take his clothes and put them in her drawer. And he would say, what happened to my clothes, honey? She goes, well, I don't know. He goes, are you taking my clothes again out of my drawer? To the point where she thought she was crazy. It's called gaslighting. So the demons first have to get you to look and see something that's really there, but you can't see it. The second thing is moving into the culture, sexual perversion, anti-God. You're laying all that down. Okay, now let's go in for the kill. In Hollywood, for the past 30, 40 years, which, I have witnessed from a distance, they do channeling. I mean, lots of channeling. I've made films with Academy Award winners, nominees, stars, and I've seen things that are horrific in this world of channeling. But what